Well, happy Passover and happy almost Earth Day. Wanted to make sure I mentioned that today. So one Easter, a pastor and a taxi driver both died and went to heaven. And St. Peter was at the pearly gates waiting for them. And St. Peter said, "Come with me," to the taxi driver. And the taxi driver did as he was told and followed St. Peter to a mansion. And it had everything you could imagine, from a bowling alley to an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Sweet. "Oh my goodness," said the taxi driver. "Wow, thank you." And next, St. Peter led the pastor to a rough old shack with a bunk bed and a little old television set. "Wait, I think you're a little mixed up," said the pastor. "Shouldn't I be the one who gets the mansion? After all, I was a pastor. I went to church every day and preached God's word." "Yes, that's true," St. Peter rejoined, "but during your Easter sermons, people slept. When the taxi driver drove, everyone prayed." If you're here with us for the first time on Easter Sunday, this poor congregation has to put up with this every week. So happy Easter, everyone. Yeah, I know. So today is the day in the Christian tradition that we celebrate the birth of Jesus. Actually, it is a birth. It's a rebirth. A resurrection of Jesus after being crucified on Friday, and the stone is rolled away, and the tomb is empty, and here he was in his glory. And so metaphysically, unity approaches Easter, that this is our time to raise our consciousness in knowing all that we are, because Jesus recognized all that he was, the Christ. So today in Unity, we are focusing on raising our consciousness and what can support us in that unfolding. And so on Friday night, those of you that were here, we had the opportunity to release and let go. Because Good Friday, it represents when we can let go of what has been so that we can make way for the resurrection experience. So, I think about Easter, and, really Easter can be an everyday experience, because when we talk about Easter, again, it's about raising our consciousness. And how do we do that? What's the process of beginning anew, being born anew? And last Sunday, we talked about how in order to start something new, we've got to end something. Whether it's an actual thing in our life, like a job, maybe a relationship, or just a way of thinking, a way of believing, a way of acting. And then there's this process called the void, in between an ending and a new beginning, where we process that releasing and its implications, what it can mean for us, and how are we going to be, what are the choices we're going to make way for the new. And so we get to let go of what has anchored us in the past in order to make way for a new expansion, a deeper knowing. New beginnings call us to be and do things differently. And that's what today is all about. Today we're celebrating our willingness and ability to do that so that we can rise in newness of life. And that phrase came to me because when I was 12 years old, it's been a few years ago, when I was 12 years old, I was baptized on Easter Sunday. I was fully immersed. And it was in a Baptist church, so they had, I don't know I call it a trough, but it's not a trough, it's the baptismal, I guess. And so we were instructed to wear white, and the minister's there, and he reaches out his hand. And of course, when he started to immerse me, I slipped and fell and made a big splash. But what I remember about that, other than that, was what he said to me is, I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And I don't know what he said after that because I was underwater. But when I came back up, he said, cleansed, raised to walk in newness of life. I mean, I have remembered that, raised to walk in newness of life since I was 12 years old. And I really love that because baptism metaphysically means we're quickening our awareness of our Christ nature. And so that's what today is about. And so we have a new perspective, and when we walk in newness of life, we have a new perspective, a new way of seeing things. And we see new beginnings all over the place. And so that process is, of course, we have to start releasing, moving out of the old. And I started to think about what supports us in these new beginnings. What supports us? We're moving out of the void. And so Edie will share with you. Edie and I, work together, and those of you that know Edie, she's the office manager here, and she's also an interfaith minister. So we're constantly talking about, in our work time, the spiritual journey and what we're working with, right? And so one of the things that I'm really working with right now is this whole idea of grace. What is grace? So, I grew up believing that grace was this idea that I received grace when I didn't really deserve it. It's kind of God's favor or God's mercy. Right there, by the grace of God go I. Remember that statement? And in unity, I am blessed and highly favored, or flavored. So there, by the favor and mercy of God, I go and have good stuff show up in my life, even though I don't deserve it. Yeah, I might not feel like I've done anything good or positive or loving, but I got it anyway. Hence, we call it grace. Like, okay, God, I didn't really study for this test, but if you give me an A this time, then we're going to work it out next time. So a little bit of bargaining and grace. But the tricky part about that is, what about the person sitting next to me that also prayed to pass the test and flunked? So how does grace kick in then? And then we get to deal with, what is our perception of God? Is it a capricious God that says, oh, John, you get an A, but Sharon, no, you get an F? No. So it doesn't really make sense. And so just bear with me here, because this is where I am right now with this whole idea of grace and how it relates to new beginnings. So I think grace is those unexpected moments in our life where we can be grateful and joyful, regardless of what's happening. And in those moments, it's like an affirmation that we're doing what's ours to do. And it really stayed with me about how this supports us in raising our consciousness each day. And of course, I'm sure you can relate that when you're working with a spiritual principle, you're working on trying on something, that it starts to work with you in your life. So of course, grace starts to work with me on my life this weekend. So Friday, I had a lot to do. Friday, I was preparing for the Good Friday service. So I needed to finish my message, and I needed to get things set for today and all that entailed. And then I'm going to Charlotte next week to work on my mom's estate. And so I'm packing and doing laundry and all that. And so I go to my computer bag to pull out my computer and start working on my message for Good Friday. And there's no cord. And I also use an external mouse. No mouse. No cord. And I was going to be on my computer probably pretty much all day. So I'm like, oh, really? So it's like 9:30, and I knew that, I was going to have to stealthily come to the church and pray nobody saw me because I was in my sweats and had my hair, I call it chicken head. And so I got in the car I was like, oh, really? And so I just thought, please, please, let no congregant be there. Please. Okay. And so on the way, I noticed my gas gauge was down to 12 miles. 12 miles before I was going to be on the side of the road without any gas. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go stop for gas. And then I had this catch-up conversation with a friend of mine who was flying to Europe today, and I knew I wasn't going to see her for a while, so we had this nice catch-up conversation. And I get to the church, yes, and I stealth in, and I get my cord and my mouse, and I get back in the car, and I go, wow, I know I'll look pretty bad, but I don't care. I'm going to stop by Staples, and I'm going to get some printer ink. So I stealthed into Staples and praying I didn't run into any of you. And I got my printer ink. And so I went home, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so I do what I need to do, and I start to print my message for Good Friday, and the ink runs out. And I'm like, I've got a backup. So I had my backup ink. And then when I'm driving to church for Good Friday service, you remember Friday how it would rain, it would pour for a while, and then it would let up. So right when I'm driving to church, it was pouring. And then it hit me. It was like, this is one of those grace moments. Unexpected joy and gratitude, because here I am in my Good Friday finery, and I didn't have to stop and pump gas. And I had ink for my talk. I could print my talk. You see what I mean? It's like, it hit me. It's like, and this is not the most profound example in the world, but it's the one that's really working for me. That it was a new beginning, folks, because I got to tell you, when I looked in that bag and I didn't find my cord, I was like, I felt a little victim-y. I'm like, really? And so what I get about grace is those moments when we go, oh, okay. It's a new moment. It's a new beginning, really. Because I was able to get over myself and not stay in victim mode and just be grateful that I had everything I needed to get everything I needed to get done. So, a new moment. Gosh, you guys, a new moment is the best thing in the world. I mean, to me, that is the grateful beginning. That in each moment, we can make another choice. Each moment that we breathe, we can go, oh, really? Okay, I know life might feel really huge right now, but I'm breathing. I can be grateful that I'm breathing, and I can make another choice and allow grace to show up, those unexpected moments of joy and gratitude for all that we have. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beautiful Buddhist monk, author, and teacher, said this: whether this moment is happy or not depends on you. It's you who makes the moment happy, not the moment that makes you happy. With mindfulness and insight, any moment can become a happy moment. So can we rise to the occasion and to begin to embrace those moments of grace in our lives? I think it starts with setting an intention. And I'm going to set an intention in my life and just plant that seed in my consciousness that whenever something goes awry and I want to go to that victim place, let me be open, let me see through the lens of grace for an unexpected moment of joy and gratitude in the midst of it. And I promise you it'll come. It will. I do. I believe it. Each moment we rise to a new embracing of life, of an awareness that life is for us. See, life isn't against us, folks. Life is for us. Life always moves forward. It doesn't go backward. It moves forward. And every moment that we can choose, that's Easter. That's a resurrection experience. So this week, I'm just going to invite you to begin to notice when you might get annoyed, anxious, or worried. And if you can be open to how it might turn into an experience of unexpected grace, a grateful new beginning. And when we make space for that, when we raise our consciousness and move out of that victim-y stuff, we create space. We do create space to allow that to show up. And we can teach ourselves that life really is for us. So each moment you change your mind about something, that's a new beginning and an opportunity to be grateful and joy-filled. So let's affirm together. I am grateful for each new day, each new moment, each new shift of awareness that has me see the beauty and goodness of life. I celebrate beginnings, endings, and everything in between, as I know it all leads to my greatest unfolding. And so it is.